It tired of its unchanging happiness. It turned away from immortality. It was drawn to hazard's call and danger's charm. It yearned to the pathos of grief, the drama of pain, perdition's peril, the wounded bear escape, the music of ruin and its glamour and crash, the savor of pity and the gamble of love, and passion and the ambiguous face of fate.
Ah, yes. This is this life force that we've been talking about that has turned from the truth, quite relevant to today's situations,
Mm.
seeking the darkness at once, more darkness at once, confusion. Uh, Shadalu's talk last night was very powerful. You saw it?
The one last week?
Yeah, no, last night.
Last night? No, not yet. I'm
Mhm.
halfway through the one last week.
Uh, well, it was a difficult one. He had to answer many unpleasant s- points from people. He did it well, but it was an hour and a half of pain I felt for me and for him. He ended it beautifully. He ended it very beautifully, and that should touch some people. But as I told him, that there are people who are never going to change. They don't want change. That's just what we're hearing here. They don't want change. They refuse change. They refuse to. They, they, they said every negative and almost pejorative word about Trump that you could find in the dictionary.
Hmm.
Everything about a womanizer, a liar. Um, I won't go on and on because when you see it, you'll understand what I'm saying. It's unfortunate, but and then there are other people said, why don't you go get back to Sri Aurobindo instead of all these things that you're talking about? And Shadalu answered so beautifully, but it was not easy at all for him. Even though he's brilliant, and he at times he told people that they had to wake up and not listen to the news, to the false news that is being spread. But nobody seems to get that everything is false news now because the cabal controls these people. So we do have X, we have the old Twitter, and he's going to mention a couple of sites where we can get correct information in next week's EWS. So we go with
Has
this
has
now.
these has the
Mhm.
current topic brought in a wider viewership than usual?
I didn't see that. No.
So it's not increased from what it was, is it?
Well, I see 10, 12 people on it. That's about all I see. But I haven't seen the results of the whole thing yet. I'll do that when I get my
Hmm.
computer going again. Yeah. I'm not sure that it brought in a wider group as yet.
Mm. Okay.
And next week it's going to be um, even tougher because it's going to be Russia and the fight with
Mm.
and Sonello and I have talked at great length about it, and he says that this guy was just a comic actor, and he took over the presidency, and and that's what become of it. The United States pouring millions of dollars into the Ukraine, Now, my Ukrainian friends feel exactly the opposite, that Russia is the devil himself. And these are good people living in Oregon. Yeah, good people. I mean, one is Andre. He massages people for free. You know, another one, well, there are just so many of them because they're Ukrainians, they're not Russians. You see, and that mixture is very strange because they tell me Russia was never a country. It was just small groups of people packed together. So you had all these different nationalities, different languages. I listen to them compassionately, but I don't say anything. They're convinced that
Narad, yes.
they're convinced
Sorry,
he's
I'm sorry
the
to cut
devil.
you. Yes.
Yeah, they're convinced that he's the devil.
Mm. I find that I'm unable to. I'm just unable to connect with most people. I find it such a waste of time. I don't know if I don't know if I'm just being very haughty or I don't know. But I find conversations useless. I find them very fake. You have to smile, you have to do this, but nobody knows what they're talking about. Everyone's in this la la land, continues to be. It's so hard to find people who you actually want to be friends with, who you actually want to spend time with. It's really hard to find that
I couldn't
company.
agree more with you. I could not agree more with you. That is the way it
So,
is. People live
and yet
on the surface of their
I
life.
yeah, and I crave, sometimes you just want to sometimes you want people around who get it, who just yeah, who you can, but there's really not a lot of value around anything really. Like there's nothing that you can watch. The things that I listen to is evenings with Shradhalu. I mean, there's not much. I just don't find much value around myself.
There are some people you could look at. Thomas Sowell is one.
Okay.
Sowell. He recently had an interview with someone else, and he's 93 years old. And he was
Mm-hmm.
clear, cogent about these issues today, this woke stuff and all of this social justice. And he speaks about it very, so I share all these things with Sradalu so that he can
Mm-hmm.
have more backup. I told him last night, you might want to go into the previous causes of things, such as 9/11, what happened to Obama, how he got warped. What about Bush? What about Clinton and Hillary Clinton? And he thought about it a lot, and he nodded that he might do that. But he's going out on a big limb, and I tell him that you're going out on a very wide limb.
Mm. What does he say about that? I haven't heard from him in a very long
He
time. I
knows he
messaged.
knows he is. He is aware that he is. But he is aware that, and he reads from Sri Aurobindo. And last night he ended with Sri Aurobindo saying, "You cannot be neutral. You have to take sides." And it's an
Mm.
incredible passage. And he said these neutral people in Oroville and neutral people everywhere, he said they're actually helping the adverse forces.
Mm.
Now that's another statement that gets him out on a high limb. But his point is correct. If you are against someone, you have to be against them for mother, not for any
Mm.
other reason, not for what you think is the truth
Mm.
or any other reason. It has to be only for mother.
Yes.
Until we can get there, until we can get out of this body, life, and mind into the higher mind and the regions of the spiritual dimensions of illumined and intuitive and overmind, we'll still see things in a wrong way, even now. We may get some insights that are true, but basically to be quiet, I think, is one of the better things that we can do. Invoking peace, invoking the calm, asking for Mother to clear up in us what needs to be cleared up. And there's so much that needs to be cleared up. So many habits, so many desires, so many things of the lower and middle vital, so many things of the mind. That's my path anyway. I'm just sharing with you. Yeah.
A world of hard endeavor and difficult toil, and battle on extinction's perilous verge, a clash of forces, a vast incertitude, the joy of creation out of nothingness, strange meetings on the roads of ignorance, and the companionship of half known souls, or the solitary greatness and lonely force of a separate being conquering its world, called it from its too safe eternity.
Well, it's the same thing that we're seeing again. This, but in a different way, because it's this search for something new, for something different, a search even for an evolutionary thrust forward. So it does meet with all these other beings. It does encounter the darkness and the falsehood and the negative forces, but it wants to move on. It wants to go on, and let's see where it's going now.
A huge descent began, a giant fall. For what the spirit sees creates a truth, and what the soul imagines is made a world.
Hmm. So this giant descent that began is the beginning of, I would say, human evolution, because it's not. He's not telling us about the animals or the insects or the amphibians or the fish, but this giant fall. It is a fall when we are up there in those, we can say, those places of rest where our soul processes what the psychic being has retained of the past birth. To leave that and come down again into a human body is a fall into the ignorance. Sri Aurobindo and Mother had to go through it too because they took human bodies. Only, of course, they were avatars, and so it was much faster for them to realize who they were. Mother at 5, seeing all these beings, covering them with a cloak, protecting them.
Hmm.
Sri Aurobindo, um, because he says first, I'm first a poet, and afterwards a philosopher. And so you see his humility, but also his humor, because he wants us to know how important his life was in poetry. 25 years or so, grounded in every aspect of poetry. First, of course, English poetry, but then French poetry, then Greek poetry, then German poetry, and all the great epics. And when he wrote Savitri, he was adhering to the epic writers who don't start the story with the beginning. They flash back everything.
Hmm.
And so book 1 is all flashback. Book 2 is all flashback. And we see that all these books of flashbacks only lead us to the story of the beginning of Savitri's birth and the quest. So now we're, of course, much further on and we're seeing many more things. So please continue on.
A thought that leaped from the timeless can become indicator of cosmic consequence and the itinerary of the gods, a cyclic movement in eternal time.
I think it's indicative. Did you
Which
say
one?
indicative?
Indicator of cosmic consequence.
Indicator.
Yes.
Ah, indicator. Okay, yes. So it is an indicator of cosmic consequence. Now, about the thought, of course, there's a lot to say about thought because Mother said that thoughts are active forces. And if you think badly about someone or you curse them, this is the occult way, then that curse falls on them.
Mm.
And or there are also positive things like Madame Theon or Alexandra David Neal. And you've read her book, I think. Alexandra.
No, I haven't.
Please look it up. It's a wonderful book.
What is it?
It's about this lady who she's quite substantial and she dresses as a monk. And she's the first woman to enter Tibet. And she talks about her experiences in Tibet. And one of the great experiences was when she sees these mailmen who are able to go 400 miles in one evening because they don't touch the soil, they just skim above it at great speed. Then there's another experience when a tiger comes up to her. She's sitting on a log and this huge tiger comes up to her. And she just looks at it with love and it finally turns away. So and Mother knew her. Mother knew Alexandra David Neal. Yeah. I can't remember the title of the book, but you'll find it.
I'll find it. I'll just put her name in the chat.
Alexandra David, and then I think it's Neel.
Alexandra David Neal.
Yes.
Neel.
Correct.
Yes.
Good.
Okay.
So we can go on a little bit longer?
Yes.
We got 5 minutes yet, and then you can read the whole thing.
Yes.
And I don't mind our talks like this. I think they're wonderful. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
I do. I really do appreciate your sincerity and your love. Thank you.
Thank you, Narad. I'm so grateful to think of when I think back at just how we connected and how you drew me further into Savitri and how we've continued this. Thank you. It's a blessing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we do a few more lines.
Yes. Thus came, born from a blind, tremendous choice, this great, perplexed, and discontented world, this haunt of ignorance, this home of pain. There are pitched desires' tents, grief's headquarters. A vast disguise conceals the eternal's bliss.
Oh, what a beautiful ending, huh? So there was this reason that the divine decided to explore other facets and aspects of himself. And one of those was from his transcendent sphere, he diminishes himself. He's not less divine, he's just diminishing all of his powers until he gets into the human body, where he begins the game, the play, as they often say. And Sri Aurobindo uses both words, a play and a game. So there is a great meaning to this earth that we can never forget, because we have come here voluntarily. And I told you, I think, before, that the Vedas say that we've had 100,000 births to get to this point.
100,000.
Births, yes. You've
My
been here. You've been here 99 some thousand times, and and it's and it's just working out the puzzle, working out the enigma, till we can leap into the next aspect, which is the supermental. And we will. It may take another 100,000, but what does it matter? I talked to Sri about this at length one time, and Sri Aurobindo said it's usually only 2 years after we pass away that we take a new birth. That's amazing, isn't it? 2 years.
Yes.
But Mother also says that sometimes it may take centuries for some souls who decide to want to stay up there and not want to come back, but eventually they do. So we can't put a fixed date on it or timing, but that's the way it is. So please read from the beginning.
Yes. It tired of its unchanging happiness. It turned away from immortality. It was drawn to hazard's call and danger's charm. It yearned to the pathos of grief, the drama of pain, perdition's peril, the wounded bear escape, the music of ruin and its glamour
Yeah,
and
but
crash.
sorry, you put a full stop on escape.
Mm, I'll read that again.
Mm.
Perdition's peril, the wounded bear escape, the music of ruin and its glamour and crash, the savor of pity and the gamble of love and passion and the ambiguous face of fate. A world of hard endeavor and difficult toil, and battle on extinction's perilous verge. A clash of forces, a vast incertitude, the joy of creation out of nothingness. Strange meetings on the roads of ignorance, and the companionship of half known souls, or the solitary greatness and lonely force of a separate being conquering its world, called it from its too safe eternity. A huge descent began, a giant fall, for what the spirit sees creates a truth, and what the soul imagines is made a world. A thought that leaped from the timeless can become indicator of cosmic consequence and the itinerary of the gods, a cyclic movement in eternal time. Thus came, born from a blind, tremendous choice, this great, perplexed, and discontented world, this haunt of ignorance, this home of pain. There are pitched desires' tents, grief's headquarters. A vast disguise conceals the eternal's bliss.
It's a great, great passage, and you read it very well. There was just
Thank
one
you.
word towards the end. Importers, was it? Importers?
Im, uh,
About 3 or 4
towards,
lines towards the end.
In the itinerary, a cyclic movement in eternal time. Uh,
The great something.
oh yes, a, a giant fall. No,
Oh, we can pick it up next
this
time.
great perplexed. This
Perplexed.
great perplexed and discontented world.
Okay.
I probably
Yeah.
yes. Next
Namaste.
week, Ashwapati is going to answer, so that will be interesting. Namaste. Thank you.